Building on the success of our partnership with IBM last year, we're excited to launch a dedicated university edition of the 2020 Call for Code Global Challenge. It's a worldwide initiative that is inspiring developers, problem solvers, and innovators across all disciplines to tackle both the pandemic and climate change.
In 2007, we launched the Clinton Global Initiative University, or CGIU, to engage the next generation of leaders on college campuses. Since then, CGIU has hosted 12 meetings where students, university representatives, advocates, activists, and other topic experts come together to discuss and develop innovative solutions to pressing global challenges. Students create their own commitments to action that address issues they care about, whether on their campuses, in their local communities, or around the world. By fostering development of solutions with open source technology, we're making great ideas available for others to be able to further refine and to adapt to their own specific needs, and hopefully so that all of these efforts strengthen one another. And we believe young people are the ideal group to help us turn all of these ideas into action.
Coding is something that just kind of comes naturally. It's something I really like to do. And when it's for a purpose, it's just that much better.
Take Project OWL, the winner of the Call for Code Global Developer Challenge in 2018. Project OWL's software and hardware solution keeps first responders and civilians connected in a natural disaster. And IBM is now implementing it in Puerto Rico through its Code and Response platform. We are looking forward to working with IBM to expand our impact by leading CGIU Codeathons online and at universities around the world.
And most of all, I really just want to thank all of you for participating and showing us kind of how much can really be catalyzed and imagined and created in such a still relatively short period of time. It's really remarkable.
Hello, my name is Willie Tejada, and I am IBM's Chief Developer Advocate. On behalf of IBM and our partner, the Clinton Global Initiative University, welcome to this virtual kickoff event. You're attending this session because you're interested in using your skills for good. Whether you're a developer, designer, or data scientist, you all are problem solvers and innovators who have the potential to save lives and reduce human suffering all over the world. Or you're in this session because you want to see your solution impact the people who need it most, similar to your peers from last year, who placed in the top 5 of our challenge, Team Astor from UC Berkeley and Team Rove from UCLA. Or you're in this session because you have the opportunity to win $10,000 as part of the Call for Code University Edition and be considered for a $200,000 Call for Code Global Challenge Grand Prize. Or you're in this session because you see the opportunity to interview at IBM for a role and work with the latest technologies like Kubernetes, TensorFlow, and blockchain. And let's face it, you might be in this session because you're bored out of your head at home and want to learn a few new skills. Look, maybe all those reasons are appealing to you, and that's what makes this challenge so different. That the ability to go from your idea to a deployment at scale that only technology can enable. Welcome to the 2020 Call for Code Global Challenge University Edition. The challenge encourages developers and problem solvers of all disciplines and experiences to answer the call and solve some of the world's most pressing issues. This year, you have 2 challenges to pick from, one acute and one systemic, but both threaten our lives. Let's take a look at those 2 challenges. First is COVID-19. This pandemic reveals a massive list of issues that need to be solved. And there are 3 areas that are particularly well positioned to combat through technology. First, when a new disease emerges, communication systems are one of the first systems to become stressed and overwhelmed. The number of calls and emails that bombard these systems make them ineffective during these times of emergencies. Look, many of you, including myself, have experienced these hold times of hours and sometimes not getting any responses at all. Addressing crisis communications is crucial. The second area in COVID-19 is all too familiar. The comprehensive shutdown of schools and facilities to exercise social distancing leaves you at home for an indeterminate amount of time. How do we keep you and your fellow students at all grades entertained and engaged in your academic pursuits? Remote education is the key. It's paramount to ensuring you, as students, are maintaining your learning, your entertainment, and as important, your social interaction virtually. The last area under the COVID-19 challenge is that you've hopefully experienced this in your neighborhoods today. It's community cooperation. Community cooperation is critical to maintaining a level head and fostering a calm environment during these times of panic. It is imperative that we find a way to help one another. Developing solutions to assist in these three areas are an integral part in dealing with this pandemic. Now, while COVID-19 has taken so many of our lives to date, there's a larger threat, one that 77% of developers and first responders say is the single most pressing issue of their generation. The second challenge category is climate change. To take on something as formidable as climate change, the first action is to address the impacts of highest priority. And we have identified three. The first is water sustainability. Look, while there are many repercussions that we will have or experience due to climate change, water issues are of the highest criticality. Over 2 billion people are living with the risk of reduced access to fresh water. Just think about the simple act of washing our hands and how important that is during COVID-19. Okay, the second area in climate change is energy sustainability. With greenhouse gases infiltrating the air that we breathe today at an alarming rate, we must recognize our energy sources that we use today are the dominant contributor to climate change. 60% of total greenhouse gas emissions are due to our current energy methodologies. And lastly, for climate change is disaster resiliency. Environmental shifts like rising temperatures are fueling natural disasters at an ascending frequency and intensity. All of you have to just look at the news footage prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and see hurricanes, tsunamis, flooding, and wildfires. 1 million people have died because of natural disasters since the turn of the century. Look, how many more flooded cities, forest fires, and state of emergencies can we endure? So, water sustainability, energy sustainability, disaster resiliency are undeniably some of the society's most pressing issues, and along with COVID-19, are cause to act right this second, now. IBM is uniquely positioned to offer you an opportunity to use your skills combined with open source technologies, access to subject matter experts, and a whole ecosystem to tackle these challenges with solutions that you build. To provide you with an example of innovation that you are capable of, I'd like you to listen to Pedro Cruz's story. He is the creator of a solution called DroneAid. Interestingly enough, it was developed to check in on his grandma in the wake of Hurricane Maria. And along his journey, the idea grew to a solution that ultimately won the Call for Code Puerto Rico Hackathon in 2018. Our team quickly recognized his talents, and not long after that, he became an IBM developer advocate based in Puerto Rico. I'd like you all to listen to his story and ask yourselves, why not me? If the reason why you're in this session is you'd like the opportunity to be a developer advocate at IBM. After the video, you'll hear from him directly, his latest developments, and you'll get a chance to win some digital swag. Pedro?
Thanks, Willie. Hi, everyone. My name is Pedro Cruz, and I'm a developer advocate at IBM. Since that Call for Code hackathon in 2018 in Puerto Rico, I've joined IBM, and it's been incredible. That hackathon really changed my life completely. I had no idea how to program AI before, never used Watson, never even used the IBM Cloud. And the mentors there were able to help me get started, and I ended up winning the hackathon. So now I'm on a mission to pass the baton. This is really a marathon when we're talking about trying to solve or mitigate climate change and COVID-19. So to show your support, I've created some augmented reality filters, some digital swag that you can use on Snapchat, but also on Zoom, WebEx, Hangouts, and Skype. Here. All right, so now let's download Snap Camera to get started. The first step is to go to snapcamera.snapchat.com. There you can download the software and start using the filters or lenses. You can check out how the software works. I even see other features and other platforms it supports like Twitch. So first step, download the software. Make sure you have all the system requirements. It works both with Mac as well as Windows. Make sure you accept the agreement. And then you can download for your device. In my case, it's Mac. I've already downloaded it, so let's see how it looks like once you open up the software. So next up, let's look for the Call for Code lens. This is what you have to do. Go to Snap Camera, open up the search, and type in Call for Code. As you can see, we have 2 lenses today. In the future, we plan to add more. Now, make sure you press favorite right here so that you can keep these accessible. Let me show you how this works. So, this is Lens Studio. This is how the filters are created inside of Snapchat and Snap Camera. So in here, we can see how many current active hats we have. It works up to 3 people. We can see the different components as well as how everything is programmed. I invite you today to go to the GitHub link to see if you want to learn how to create lenses, if you want to customize it. This even works with cats and dogs. So check it out. Take a picture on social media with your cat or your dog. Put the hashtag Call for Code and share your support. I really look forward to seeing what you build this year. Feel free to reach out through Twitter, and good luck. Back to you, Willie.
Pedro, thanks for using your skills for good and being part of this global community. Now let's take a look at the 5 tips for a winning solution. First, understand the real-world problems. The Call for Code Challenge every year is looking for solutions that have a lasting impact and bring the technology to bear on real problems and sustainable solutions. Therefore, make sure you thoroughly understand the problem domain, honestly consider whether the technology can solve a particular problem, and honestly consider how effective the technology can be, and certainly make sure that it doesn't add more to the problem. Look, review the UN Sendai framework. There's resources like watching Tech Talks with the SMEs, and look at all the additional research that you may find in the field. You can do that by following these links that you see on your screen. Okay, second, don't reinvent the wheel. As you brainstorm your solution that you plan to build, don't forget to consider the existing tools and data sets and APIs that are already out there and exist. Your solution will have the greatest impact if it addresses a long-standing problem that doesn't have an existing solution today. It will also be more valuable if it builds on or integrates with an existing solution such as a commercial product with an existing API. It's also important to look at standards and protocols that you can implement or leverage, such as the OASIS Emergency Data Exchange Language, EDXL. Look at those in other formats. Okay, third, document your source code repository. The call for code submission form allows you to provide information about your application in various formats: a 500-word description, a project roadmap, and a demo video. And like most software, the best ways to show how mature your project is and how it can be explored by the judges in a hands-on manner is to create a fantastic README file. Look, Google can help here. Search on README best practices to find a few tutorials. You can also think about embedding your video or other visuals that illustrate the application at its depth. Your fourth tip, invest time to create a powerful video. One of the most powerful ways to tie your entire submission together, and one that will impact all types of judges, the technical judges, the NGO judges, the eminent judges, is a compelling video. Leave the deep dive material and full implementation details in your 500-word solution description, source code repository, and solution roadmap. A recommended format for your 3-minute video, 45 seconds of what exactly are you trying to solve and how exactly have you solved it. A minute and a half on the demo of the submission itself and the full user flow. And then 45 seconds on the results and next steps. Okay, lastly, your fifth tip. Double check the permissions. Look, your team, of course, will want to make sure that everything you submit is free of typos and represents your team's highest quality work. But one of the key issues we've seen when running these competitions is that permission errors can prevent the judges from fully evaluating your code. The simplest solution is to make sure your source code repository and demo video are publicly viewable after the July 31st deadline. And remember, when publishing, the most popular license today is the Apache license version 2.0. If you choose not to make your repository public, then make sure to add @call4code judges as outlined on the screen as an outside collaborator. And if you provide a private video, include the password with your video link. You can add it after the URL in the form field. So there are 4 steps to the submission itself. Step 1, register and become familiar with the scope of the competition, the prizes, the rules, and of course the schedule. Step 2, explore the starter kits and other resources and use the code patterns to help you build quickly. Number 3, learn from the experts and find teammates. Introduce yourself, meet advocates, brainstorm fantastic ideas, find a team, hear about the updates, and be part of the community. Step 4, submit and iterate on your solution. Describe your solution, link to your code and demo, accept the participation agreement. Remember, when you submit, select that you want to be eligible for the University Edition award and confirm that all of your team members meet the eligibility criteria. For more information, visit our FAQ at the link that you'll see on the screen. Once you have made your submissions, judges will evaluate your submissions using 4 equally weighted criteria. Completeness and transferability is the first criteria. How fully has the idea been implemented? Can it achieve an impact in the field? Can it be transferred elsewhere? Second criteria, effectiveness and efficiency. Does the solution address a high priority area? Does it achieve its goal effectively and efficiently? Can it scale? Okay, third, design and usability. How good is the design, user experience, and how easy of the solution is it to use? How quickly can you put it to use? Lastly, creativity and innovation. How unique was the approach to solving a long-standing or previously intractable problem? So that's it. We're in the third year of the challenge, and I'm asking you to join the 210,000 developers who submitted over 8,000 applications from over 165 nations before you, to commit to the cause, push for change, and come answer the call. Join the Call for Code 2020 Global Challenge University Edition. Join the fight, save a life. Okay, to help us kick off our university series of events, I couldn't think of a better suited speaker to join us than Taiwan's digital minister in charge of social innovation, Audrey Tang. She has written a new set of rules of what it means to be a technology expert. Having been self-educated since the age of 14, Audrey is known for revitalizing the computer languages Perl and Haskell. She is an active contributor to GovZero, focusing on creating tools for civil society, and has served on Taiwan's National Development Council's Open Data Committee. And for her dedication in the industry, she has been named one of the 10 greats of Taiwanese computing personalities. Please welcome to your screens, Audrey Tang.
Hello, I'm Audrey Tang, Taiwan's Digital Minister. I'm really honored to be here virtually to share with you some thoughts around how digital social innovation can help counter the new coronavirus. In Taiwan, we define social innovation as anything that originates from the participation of citizens to the benefit of the whole society. Collective intelligence, that is to say, people discovering about new coronavirus outbreaks and posting it publicly to discuss, is one such social innovation. The Taiwan equivalent of Reddit, PTT, is where people post such ideas. And someone with the nickname Nomo Repipe last year noticed Dr. Li Wenliang, the whistleblower in PRC's social media posts, and started reposting it around December 31st. Around the same hour, Dr. Li Wenliang is being questioned by his institution and eventually would get disciplined. However, in Taiwan, the opposite happened. The CDC in Taiwan took this post very seriously and treated as if SARS has happened again, something that Taiwan has been always prepared since the SARS epidemic in 2003. And so the very next day, the first day of 2020, we start implementing the inspections of all the flights that originate from Wuhan to Taiwan. And so this shows two things. The first is that the civil society is robust enough and trust each other enough in order to share news like this, and that the government trusts the information sources enough to begin a serious investigation. Taiwan, according to the Civicus Monitor, is the top place in Asia to enjoy a thoroughly open civil society in terms of the freedom of the press, of assembly, of the speech. We definitely make sure that people can share freely whatever they have discovered in the collective intelligence. And this is partly why we responded so early, and nowadays our schools, our businesses remain open. So this is how we communicate once the Central Epidemic Control Center starts establishing. The CECC, the Command Center, holds a press conference that is live streamed every day. And the CECC answers live questions from all journalists until the journalist is done with the questions and leaving no questions unanswered. And it's all live streamed with plenty of input from PTT and also from other online channels. For example, there was a case back in April 13. The day before, the journalists were asking a question. There was a young boy, because they get a medical mask that is pink. He did not want to go to school because he feared that he will get bullied by his classmates for wearing a pink mask. The very next day, at the press conference, all the CECC staff wore pink medical mask. And this is not only important in the sense of gender equality education. This is also important knowing that when people call the hotline 1922 of the CECC, they know that they can speak freely about not only the new cases or the new ideas or the new innovations that have stumbled upon, but also share their worries, their anxiety, and so on, including a boy feeling anxious about wearing a pink medical mask to the school. And so this is how social innovations become part of a routine input into our press conferences, and also how we stay on top of the rumors. The next part of social innovation that I want to share is a sense of fairness. And the medical mask is one of the very good examples. In Taiwan, everyone can take a national health insurance card and walk to a pharmacy. And now, every 2 weeks, if you're an adult, you can get 9 medical masks. If you're a child, you can get 10 medical masks per 2 weeks. But at the very beginning, there's panic buying like everywhere else. So not only we implemented a NHI real name purchasing rationing policy, we also make sure that everybody can know that which pharmacies nearby them still have the mask in stock, so they don't have to run to 4 or more pharmacies. But we do this is very peculiar. Instead of building a single website or services, we managed to work with this pharmacist so that they all publish their stock levels every 3 minutes as open data. Because we trust the citizens to do well and do good with this open data, there's now more than 130 applications online that provides this kind of mask availability information as maps, as voice assistants, as tables listings for people with blindness, for all sorts of different inclusion needs. And because of this, we also establish what we call a data collaborative, so that pharmacies can also feedback what they want out of the NHI system. And all of this is built upon a single payer system, the national health insurance, that people feel very safe. If they get some of the symptoms, they wear a mask, they go to a clinic, because they know that it will not cost them much or even anything to get treated for coronavirus diseases. And also, it enables policy feedback as well. There's a dashboard built by the civil society that shows the real-time supply, refresh every 3 minutes, of where the adult masks are in shortage, where the children's masks are in shortage, and so on, so that every Monday, when we hold our mask meetings, chaired by our premier, we can adjust our supply strategies very quickly and swiftly based on the actual usage data. And also tells us that there's many people in large municipalities that work well after the pharmacy's opening hours, so they don't get to purchase masks after work because they conclude work around 10 p.m. or later. So this is why, as you can see here, that we work now with all the convenience stores in Taiwan, so that you can take the same NHI card starting this Wednesday. You can just go to there and swipe your NHI card and pre-order your mask ration for the next week. And so because of this, convenience stores are open 24 hours. They actually welcome these new visitors, so they complement the pharmacies to provide 24 hours a new source of collecting masks in addition to online pre-ordering as well. So all the 3 channels are built with a sense of fairness of getting the masks distributed widely, and so that everybody can have the personal protective equipments that together is the best alternative before a vaccine is developed, that we put on those masks and maintain a social distance. Now, during the time of epidemic, everybody is, of course, anxious and sometimes panic. But panic buying and other behaviors then spur more panic behavior. And especially in an online forum, people very quickly resort to conspiracy theories or verbally attack each other and so on in order to get their panic and anxiety out there. So instead of saying no to anxiety or panic, we have been discovering that the social innovation idea of humor over rumor, not before they add that mimetic payload. They would not publish such a dry material, but rather relies on funny mimetic information so that rumors do not stop the humor in its tracks. So this went viral. Everybody learned that panic buying is unnecessary. After a day or so, we discovered that the people spreading such a rumor was tissue paper resellers themselves, and the panic buying is put into arrest. And this is not a singular, unique behavior. Every single press conferences of the CECC is translated into this kind of cute memes by the spokesdog of the CECC, who talks about social distancing in terms of how many dogs, to talks about how to cover your mouth correctly instead of like this, and remind you to pay for the pre-order of the masks. And again, because these things go literally viral on social media, it makes sure that people feel engaged and remixed such ideas, feeling participatory in sharing essential ideas about sanitation of the hands, about social distancing, and about facial mask use. And so this is just a brief example, and I would like to welcome you sincerely to check out this website, taiwancanhelp.us, to learn more about the digital social innovation and more that Taiwan is contributing to the world. Thank you for listening.
Welcome. My name is John Wallachy, and today we're going to cover the Call for Code 2020 themes and starter kits. So welcome, everyone. I wanted to first introduce myself. My name is John Wallachy. I am an IBM developer advocate. I love to mentor at hackathons and teach workshops. I write tutorials and record webinars. I love to inspire developers and students to build with IBM Cloud and IBM Watson AI services and really make their projects come to life. I have with me today Derek Kay, and I'll let Derek say a few words about himself.
Hey, John, thanks very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Derek T.A., and I am the lead developer advocate on Call for Code, Code and Response, and strategic projects. So a lot of what I do is similar to what John does. I enable developers, university students, pretty much anyone that wants to do something with Call for Code. I help bring their projects to life as well. I have a different area of expertise than John. John's really, really good with IoT. I know, a little bit about it, but a lot of my expertise is in just our cloud services, Watson AI stuff as well. So I'm here with John to kind of talk about how we can get everyone engaged to work on this global challenge for 2020, focused on climate change, as well as focused on the COVID-19 challenge, which we'll talk a little bit about here coming up.
Let's talk about that, Derek. So this year, two themes. Usually it's one themed. In the last 2 years, it was natural disasters. But this is the third year of Call for Code. It's a $30 million 5-year Tech for Good global hackathon. And this year, our original plan was to run a whole theme around climate change. Really important topic that many of us are passionate about slowing and reversing. But in the last several months, the COVID-19 pandemic has really caused the world to pause. And so we have added a second track, a second challenge to Call for Code this year around the pandemic. And so these two themes are equal, and we're actually running in parallel the two different timelines. So Derek, do you want to talk about the timelines?
Yeah, so there's, if you can see on the screen here that John's sharing, so we do have the climate change challenge. That was the main track that we had for Call for Code 2020. That will run all the way until July 31st. But we added the COVID-19 track on March 20th. And so you'll see in the purplish timeline below that, it runs parallel to the regular the call for code challenge on climate change. The difference is here, we're looking for early submissions for the COVID-19 challenge by April 27th. We know that's just less than 2 weeks from today. But if you have something at least that implements one Watson service that you can show that has a good story, you can submit by April 27th. And the top 3 solutions for COVID-19 will be announced at IBM Think 2020 on May 5th. If you don't have stuff ready by then, or you need more time, that's totally fine. You can still submit up until the final deadline of July 31st. So just to be very clear, April 27th are the early submissions for COVID-19 solutions. The top 3 will be featured at IBM Think 2020 on May 5th. But if you do not meet that deadline and you don't have the time to do it, then you need some more time to submit. July 31st is still totally fine for final submission deadlines. That's for both tracks, climate change and the COVID-19 track as well.
And so, Derek, what's the award at the end here? Some big money, right?
Yeah, big money. So on the overall Call for Code Global Challenge, the overall winner is looking at $200,000 from us, as well as long-term support from the Linux Foundation, implementation through our Code and Response program, which is a big differentiator for what we believe for us, because it's kind of like a startup incubator, right? So we don't want to just say, hey, here's the money, great, see ya, right? We want to take your idea because you won, right? We want to take your idea and we want to actually implement it with IBM resources. We get some of the best people from the IBM Service Corps from around the world to come and help implement your project. And this is something that I got to do for the last 2 years with Project Owl, our 2018 winner, and Prometeo, our 2019 winner. We get the best of IBM together to help with these solutions and actually make these deployable, implementable solutions. So it's definitely worth submitting to the final
and they
submission.
become great partnerships with those winners, right? Really working with them to bring them forward and make a difference and change the world.
Absolutely. Yep.
In our next steps, let's walk through the steps for how to join and how to get started and how to submit. Tell us about that, Derek.
Sure. So 4 easy steps to get started with this. The first part is accepting the challenge. So you can go to ibm.biz/cfc-2020. You can learn all about the details of the challenge. You can read the participation agreement, get started with an IBM Cloud account. Everything is there for you to get started, understand the technicalities and the specifics of our Call for Code Global Challenge. And then the next step is build with open tech, ibm.biz/start-coding. Tons of resources there for you, such as what we call code patterns, which are basically full architectural solutions that have architectural diagrams, an intro to what these are, full code available on GitHub as well. Many of them have an instant button that you can deploy directly to IBM Cloud. So I would take a look there. There's, on top of code patterns, there's videos about these topics that would be relevant and of interest, and as well as some other tutorials to kind of give you a jump start to build your own stuff. Maybe you already have an idea. Maybe you just want some ideas on how to implement your idea. Whatever you're looking for, that step is going to be pretty helpful with a ton of resources. Third step, finding your squad. So if you go to callforcode.org/Slack, it's an auto inviter to our Call for Code Slack workspace. And you'll be able to look for teammates if you need some teammates. Maybe you're a developer that's looking for, maybe you're a back-end developer looking for someone that's a front-end person, or vice versa. Or, maybe you have maybe you're not a technical person and you want to link up with a technical team and provide some insight. Whatever you're looking for, you can find teammates there. You can find experts there as well, like John and myself. We're always in there answering questions. A couple of our other coworkers are in there very, very frequently to answer your questions. Or you can also share some of your ideas. If you want to run by some of your ideas and kind of just get a sanity check on it, you can do that as well. And then the last step would be submitting your idea. When you have that all done, callforcode.org/submit. Like we talked about, this is where, if you are the finalist, you win $200,000 implementation from our Code and Response Initiative and long-term support from the Linux Foundation. So if you really want to see your idea come to life, and you have gone through all of this stuff and you think you have a really, really good solution, please make sure you submit it. Make sure you submit it with all the relevant information we need. Make sure you have a GitHub that's available that we can see all this code. Everything will be talked about on callforcode.org/submit. But pretty easy steps, everything from getting you started to finding all the resources and help you need to submitting your idea. 4 pretty simple steps, all with the links right here. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was the academic initiative here. So ibm.com/academic. For those of you with an academic email address, remember that after the hackathon, that there's a wealth of IBM assets and offerings to take advantage of. So these can all be found on the IBM Academic Initiative page. It's a self-service program that provides students and faculty at accredited academic institutions with access to select IBM resources at no charge for classroom and non-commercial research purposes. Just go to ibm.com/academic and register there. Then you can use IBM tools for your student projects, lab work, research, or for just finding out more on emerging technologies from AI to data science, all the way through to quantum. So please go and take a look. It's there and it's available for you.
Great set of resources.
Absolutely.
I thought next we would talk about starter kits, because that's a great way to come up to speed really quickly. Maybe you've got an idea, you've got a team, you want to run with it really fast. Remember the April 27th deadline or the July 31st deadline. Don't stop, keep going. Others are eager to join because they see how important these 2 challenges are, but need some help on what types of ideas might be successful. And so what we did, we assembled a set of experts. We came together, we thought through what a starter kit in these particular themes might be. And then we described what a problem statement. We talked with experts in the field. We brought them to several events, lots of interviews, and then we started to build a solution using a set of technologies. We described our solution, we built the architecture diagrams, and then we wrote tutorials with starter code, actually all open source, so that you'll be able to take advantage of that. Fork the code, start to build with the code, extend it in a way inside of your project, and then make your solution that much better. So you've got a set of data sets and additional documentation. You can come talk to us in the Slack workspace, engage with those experts, and really make it come to life. Let's go take a look at those 6 starter kits. So in the climate change starter kit, the climate change challenge, we've got 3 starter kits: water sustainability, energy sustainability, disaster resilience. Water sustainability, this is a farm soil project. We take a personal weather station, so you've got hyper-local weather. We use and take advantage of the weather company and their seasonal forecast to build a weather model for that farm. We deploy a set of sensors out into the soil. We collect IoT temperature, humidity, soil water, moisture. We send that data to Watson IoT platform. We bring all of that together, and we can really showcase a crop forecast model. In the energy sustainability solution starter kit, we've got a climate rating service, so we can educate consumers on how they misuse energy and hopefully change their behavior. And then the last starter kit around disaster resilience, we built a mobile app with a chat bot, a database to really help a victim maybe that's affected by a flood. And so great set of starter kits. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in a couple of minutes. We'll take you out to those web pages and we'll go take a look at those solutions. We're very clever. Let's talk about the COVID-19 challenge. And in the COVID-19 challenge, we have 3 starter kits. We're all home, right? Sheltering in place. My 2 daughters back from college, they would much prefer to be on campus, but we're going to work through it and hopefully social distance. I know many of you would prefer to be on campus as well. But use your time to join us in Call for Code and maybe build a solution for the pandemic. We've got 3 starter kits. So crisis communications, we've got our remote education starter kit and a community cooperation starter kit. Crisis communications clearly want to disseminate trusted information to users, right? So build a chatbot. We'll show you how to do that. Remote education, we want to improve the remote education educator, and that remote educator wants to very often use a whole set of online resources, and Derek will teach us about his starter kit and his team. And last, we have our community cooperation starter kit, which is a supply chain. Who's got masks? Who has medical supplies? Who's got supplies in your neighborhood? And so a combination of an app and a chatbot and a database and a backend. So a very clever starter kit there. One level deeper, right? So how did we build the crisis communications starter kit? And so we took a set of Watson technologies. So IBM Watson Assistant, Watson speech to text and text to speech. We built a chatbot, and then we integrated it with voice, with Slack, on the web, and we show you how to do that as a set of tutorials. In the remote education scenario, we built a set of microservices for education. We showed you how to build a remote classroom experience, and then we embed those microservices in an app that you might want to use as part of your education for transcription. So record your lecture and send that to a transcription service, get back the class notes. We also know that educators need to quiz their students. And so we built a quiz app with Loopback. And last, in the community cooperation track, we took advantage of location data, and we show you how to build a supply chain database. We encourage everyone to join the fight and really help us slow the pandemic. Let's go take a look at some of the code, because I think that's what everyone is interested in. And so first thing, I want to remind everyone, all of our starter kits are available in GitHub, open source, for you to inspect, to fork, to build upon, to incorporate into your project. And so jump up to github.com/call-for-code and drill down and take our code. Visit developer.ibm.com/call-for-code, and you'll find a whole landing page of resources. The starter kits, obviously, are what we're talking about today. So in the climate change starter kits, there's a set of videos and resources. We're going to talk about water sustainability, energy sustainability, and disaster resilience. Let's go take a look at those. So in the water sustainability starter kit, remember I told you about that farm and that subsistence farmer who wants to improve the yield when climate change is really affecting his crops and his soil and the water. So we put together a couple of different tutorials. So the first one is about IoT sensors, collecting data from that farm, the temperature, humidity, the soil, all of that you might collect from the dirt, and send that to IoT platform. And so we've got a set of instructions on how to do that with IBM Cloud. And then we want to take our weather forecast. So we show you how to build a personal weather station. Maybe it's a farm weather station plus the seasonal forecasts. And we show you how to build a dashboard and a weather model in that starter kit. In the energy sustainability starter kit, we want to educate consumers to be more efficient with their consumption of energy. And so part of that is knowledge. When you know more about how you consume energy, you might change your behaviors. And so what this team did was they built a climate impact rating system. And so it's an app plus a backend database, which you can now use to educate someone on their consumption of energy in their home, in their industry, and hopefully change their behavior to be more efficient and consume less. Our last starter kit in the climate change scenario is about flooding. And so how do we help that flood victim through that natural disaster? And the team here built a mobile app plus a chat bot, and they were really clever in their use of a backend to supply the proper information, a chat bot to make that interaction with the user through the mobile app really successful. We show you a video and some resources on how they built it. So really take advantage of that. The architecture is pretty straightforward. Oh, one interesting thing about this particular solution, in a flood, you really need to know where you are to get the best help. And so they pulled in an open API from here around mapping. So quite interesting. Let's jump over to the COVID-19 challenge and the starter kits we have. So visit developer.ibm.com/call-for-code, get started COVID-19. And we even have Lady Gaga helping us send out the word to developers around the world. Hopefully you caught her message and are ready and willing to accept the challenge. We have a timeline, which Derek earlier took you through. And then, of course, we talk about our starter kits, which we're going to go take a look at now. So the starter kits, let's jump up to the first one. So the first one is a crisis communications starter kit. And we wanted to build a chat bot that can answer questions about COVID-19. And so we want to disseminate trusted information, lessen the fake news, and also provide relevant and useful information back to the user. Now, when you build a chatbot, you've got a lot of choices. So we first embedded the chatbot on a website, and then we integrated that chatbot in a Slack workspace. And then last, we voice enabled the chatbot using Node-RED so you can talk to it. And of course, we do have architecture diagrams. Let's go drill down into one of them. Here we've got a user. He's going to interact, or she's going to interact on a web page, and maybe in the lower right corner, you've got a little chat icon. Click on it, and you start to have a conversation with our chat, and you can ask it with natural language a question. What is COVID-19? How can I get help? I'm feeling sick. Can I get it from my dog? How many people are infected? Those questions are sourced from the CDC FAQs. So we use a trusted data source to really populate our Q&A. And then we know that users want to interact with a chatbot and ask, what are the most recent news about COVID-19 in my neighborhood, in my community? And so we call out to Watson Discovery, which is a news aggregation service. And so it can return articles back to the chatbot and serve to the user a set of answers. And then last, you might want to know some statistics about infections and death rates and recovery, how many people have been tested. And so we call out using a webhook and IBM Cloud Functions, which is an OpenWhisk implementation, out to an external API, which you can query, get the data, and pass it back to the user. So a good use of Watson Assistant. We give you a set of annotations on how the flow works. We take that same architecture, we put it in front of or behind a chat experience inside Slack. And so we show you how to integrate the solution with Slack. And then we show you how to put Watson Assistant with Watson speech to text and text to speech, so you can voice enable your chatbot. And of course, in our tutorials, we take you through all the steps, how to build it, right? And go through each dialogue, what you might post in that particular dialogue, how to wire it all together. And we give you the code in our Git repository. So that covers the first track. Let's go to the next one, which is remote education.
Yeah, so I will take this, John, because this is something that my team worked on here. I'm going to screen share, although it says I can't screen share while you are sharing. So you could stop sharing and then I will start my commentary. Great. So John, let me hop in here and I think I can take this because this was something that my team worked on specifically. So we looked at how we could take remote education and make something great out of it. So again, John went over this page. To get to where we're going to talk about here, just click on remote education and it will take you here. So I'm not going to go through and read the overview and the idea and everything here. You can take a look and see why we decided to come up with this and what we thought that we could do. But I'm going to quickly talk about the 3 solutions that came out of the remote education starter kit. The first one was a quiz app. So this was developed by Spencer Crum. It was his idea, really great idea. Basically, it allows a developer or anyone who wants to take this code to create a very simple quiz app that has a React front end. But all the code on the back end is generated by Loopback, which is pretty cool. If you're unfamiliar with Loopback, there is a replay where you can watch where we went through this in depth. John will share that in a little bit, the link to that where you can go and see this. But it's pretty incredible because Loopback allows you to take, it's a command line tool, and you just go through and you tell it you want to generate a model. And it mocks out all the APIs for you for all the operations on generating a quiz, generating the questions, updating, deleting, all the CRUD operations on that. It just generates it literally within about a minute. You have everything you need to do. It sets up a Swagger instance where you can go through and actually test out your API, and then you can link something like that pretty easily to a front end, which in this case was React. Again, we have the tutorial for that. A little bit further down the page, it'll bring you to the tutorial. You're able to go through and see it. This is kind of what the app looks like. Again, very simple. It's meant to just be easy to create. You can put any front end on it that you want. But all the steps are here. The GitHub repo is listed here for you as well. So everything in here is ready to go. Tells you start to finish how to get all this done. So definitely a great solution. We also have another solution created by Pedro Cruz and Daniel Cunnington that was a speech to text transcriber for videos. So basically, you might already have teachers that have videos on things that they need to, have their students watch, but not everyone learns best from videos, or maybe they want just the option to have that video transcribed into plain text so people can read it. So this service allows you to do that. You take a video. We, in the demo, use the Lady Gaga video that she talked about Call for Code and joining the challenge, and we process that through. But it could be anything. So you can upload anything. You'll get back a transcript of that. And optionally, you can also send it to Watson Translation. So if you have students that maybe learn better in another language, maybe you don't know that language, or maybe you just want to make something easily available for them, you can upload your video, have it transcribed, have it translated. Again, here's the architectural diagram for it. You have the tutorial as well. And as always, again, diagrams, instructions, GitHub code available for you. Please feel free to go through and change things if there's anything you want to update. Pedro has been keeping this up to date. Daniel's been keeping it up to date. And we've taken in some pull requests from people to update things. So please, we're not perfect. We're trying to build some great set of tools for you guys. And if we can enhance them and make them better, all the best, right? And then lastly, in the remote education piece, we have an ability to set up a skills network platform. So what that was kind of something I worked on. I wanted to find something that we could not only do for developers like we did with the other 2 solutions, but also create something that developers could use, but also teachers could use or schools could use, something maybe a little less techy, but that still provided a really good online learning management system. So we are offering our Skills Network platform free until November of 2022. So you have 2.5 years to implement and use this platform. And it's very easy if you want to learn about it. This interactive demo link here will take you to this learning platform. And it's pretty advanced what it can do. It's not only just for courses and things. You can click here. There's a whole repository of courses that you can add. You can create your own custom content, which we have all kinds of documentation to show you how to do that. But this also integrates directly with Watson Assistant, like John was talking about earlier. This is a chatbot here that is all powered by Watson Assistant. So you're able to create something that has answers to questions, resources, links, things of that nature, and that natively integrates here with the platform, which is pretty cool. You're able to create blog posts for things. You're able to create events. You're able to do competitions directly from this platform here as well. It's pretty advanced. And again, it's very easy to do. You're just gonna fill out this form here that goes to us. Fill this out as completely and as accurately as you can. Goes to us here at IBM, and we will provision this for you and get you set up with an instance of the Skills Network platform. And it's pretty simple. And to give a really good example of what this is for, the Richmond Hill Art School, actually this was kind of a necessity for them with everything going on with COVID-19. They still wanted to deliver education to people. And so they took all of their content, and within less than 2 weeks of having nothing to what you see here now, this was all built out. They've put all of their courses in here with all the information that they need, calendar options as well. I mean, everything is in here. So it's relatively limitless what you could want to do with it. If you want to set something up for, a grade school, high school, or anything in between, this gives you the ability to do that on our platform, integrating smart capabilities like virtual assistant and everything. So it's definitely pretty cool. I would encourage you to check that out. And that's pretty much it on the remote education starter kit. On this page, just like with all the other starter kits, we kind of talk about what technologies we use to create this and give you some more things for learning as well if you're more interested in Kubernetes or Docker, which is how the video transcriber service works. You can learn about that. If you want to play around with speech to text or language translation, you can do that as well. These are our official demos for these things. So we've given you a lot of resources to be able to play with these things and kind of come up with things on your own. John, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about the last COVID-19 starter kit.
Thank you, Derek. Let's wrap up with the Community Cooperation Starter Kit. And now remember, we want to show a community how to work together in connecting who's got what supplies. So tracking medical supplies or goods in your neighborhood, who needs a particular thing. Well, we built a supply chain app using a location service plus a mobile app. So we give you some mobile code, and the mobile code talks with, let's go drill into this and take a look at it. The user interacts with a mobile app, and it's running React Native. It's got location awareness, talks to a chatbot, which talks to IBM Cloud. And in that chatbot, the Node.js web server reaches out to a database of supplies. And so you can ask through the chatbot who has masks, who's got particular goods for you from the grocery store. Very useful source codes available in the tutorial. You can bring all of that together, Android, iOS. You can wire in the services. Maybe you extend it with blockchain. Maybe you extend it with a set of needs in your community. So a great chance to really build a starter kit for community cooperation. In our last section, we want to encourage everyone to, if you want to build one of these starter kits, you can actually listen to the experts, Pooja and Mofi and Daniel and Pedro and Spencer and Derek and I. Well, we recorded ourselves building all of the tutorial workshop steps in a set of videos. And so if you want to come and really listen to the experts do it, watch us do it, maybe that's a great way for you to learn step by step, go through it. So you can find us do all these replays, couple of hours of content, and really interesting. We've broken it down into a whole set of replays. Great opportunity for you to continue your learning journey with IBM Cloud and join the challenge against COVID-19. I encourage everyone, join the fight. Really great opportunity for you to help us and help the world reduce climate change and fight back against the pandemic.
Yeah, John, I think the set of tools that we went over were great. I'm super excited to see what comes out of this, what people create. Don't forget, everyone, that you're also able to find us. A lot of us are on Twitter. You can always find us in the Call for Code Slack channel for whatever help that you need. So utilize these resources that John and I have showed you. Take advantage of all the digital content that we have out there for you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you have questions, probably someone else could benefit from hearing your question and seeing it answered as well.
We've got a whole set of IBM experts ready and willing and eager to help you make your solution really awesome. And we would love to see you on stage in October holding up that $200,000 prize.
Absolutely.
Blaze here with me. Thank you first and foremost for your participation. It rained today in Austin, so thank you for the precipitation in Austin, but thank you for your participation in the 2020 Call for Code University Edition. These are definitely challenging times that we live in today, and we're excited to share with you a little bit about design thinking. We know from personal experience that this way of working can definitely enable a team to deliver solutions and products that enable outcomes into the world. And if we think about the challenges that we're facing today with COVID-19, with climate change, like those are all big, wicked problems. And design thinking is just tailor-made to bring life to those solutions. Jessica and I, we both work for IBM. And while we use design thinking every day, at IBM, we've also used it in the nonprofit sector, everything from infectious disease, education, and disaster response, just to name a few. Before we get started talking about design thinking, we'll do some quick introductions. Also, too, just want to point out, you can see both Jessica and my Twitter handle. If we say something smart, let us know. Likewise, if you think we say something dumb.
Precipitation.
Say that too, like all feedback is good, right? So quick introductions here. As I mentioned, my name is Chris Hammond. I am a designer by education and experience. I'm really passionate about healthcare. You can see me in the upper right-hand corner there. Before I joined IBM, doing a usability test for a medical device that was still in development. You'll also notice in the bottom left-hand corner there, me with some of my good friends from the Taiwan Center for Disease Control. I had the opportunity to do some pro bono work for them around the spread of infectious disease a few years ago. And then I've got a family. I like old cars. That is not my family, although Thor, our wonder dog lab mix, certainly is part of the family. So Jessica?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Jessica Tremblay. I am a designer here at IBM. I help head and run our 100 plus enterprise design thinking global chapters around the world and provide them with whatever they need to be able to scale the practice of enterprise design thinking. I really enjoy baking and I'm getting really good at it, especially now that we're home isolating, so nobody can taste what I'm making, but whatever, it's delicious, just trust me. These are my two old lady meows up there in the upper right hand corner. It's what I wake up to looking at every single morning. They are my alarm clock. And then one of my passions down here on the bottom, I love to make sure that women, and especially here in our local Austin, Texas community, that they know that they can have a fulfilling, amazing career in tech. So there's me and some of my amazing facilitators at an event that we did here in Austin.
Thanks, Jessica. So agenda-wise, some of the things that we're going to cover, Jessica's going to walk us through an introduction to design thinking. Thank you for those that filled out our survey. We saw a big mix, like some of you have done design thinking before, some of you have heard of it, and everything in between there. So we are going to cover a couple of methods, but also some digital tools. In the world we live in, it's hard to co-locate our team and work on this together. So anything that we can bring to facilitate and assist with collaboration virtually is going to be a big plus. And we're grateful for the folks at Mural who have made their platform available to all of you as university students doing the call for code. A couple of methods that we chose out of our big toolbox that we're going to cover tonight: assumptions and questions and need statements. And it's not really a method, but it really runs through everything. How do we ask better questions? So when we're doing some generative research, trying to understand who the people are and what their needs are, or maybe a bit more summative, like when we've got some concepts and we're trying to get feedback on them. Knowing how to ask better questions is always going to be useful. So mentioned some of this already, but here are all the links and all the places to go. So there is the Call for Code Slack. I would invite you all to fire that up and have that next to your video stream. Look for the channel Design Minus Thinking. We'll be actually using that and engaging with you that way. So if you have any questions or answers throughout our talk tonight, we can answer them through the Slack channel. And likewise, after we're done here too, Jessica and myself, and we've actually got some colleagues that we've invited. So there's a number of design thinking mentors in there to really help you if you feel like you're getting stuck. We've got some Mural templates that we think will be helpful, not a required tool to use for the call for code, but something that can definitely help you define the right problem and iterate towards a solution that will do well. And then lastly, IBM has a number of resources that for you all as university students are free around design thinking. There's a number of training modules if you're learning to, or if you'd like to learn more from what we're covering tonight. And the thing that I like the most, and the reason why I go back all the time, is there's the toolkit. You can download slides to facilitate, and there's step-by-step instructions. So some really great resources. Again, throughout, if you're not in the design thinking channel and the Call for Code Slack workspace, jump in there because we're going to be there in just a few minutes. All right, Jessica, take us away.
All right, so let's just get started and roll right into an introduction to what design thinking is and some of the components that make it up and how you can start applying it and using it for your projects. All right, so something that we like to say in design thinking is showing is better than telling. However, we also like to say feeling is better than showing. So we're gonna try a quick little experiment. So everybody grab a writing utensil of some sort. I got a pen, and I got a Sharpie, I got a highlighter, doesn't matter, whatever. And then grab a piece of paper. I've got an old bill here I'll probably draw on the back of, or some Post-its. Anything will work. And I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds. So I want you to design a vase. So you got 30 seconds. Go. There's my music.
You got so distracted designing a bait.
Yeah.
All right, 30 seconds up, Jessica.
That's awesome. So I have a feeling most of your drawings look something probably similar to this, right? A vessel of some sort with flowers coming out of the top of it. Yeah, that's about right. Some square ones, some rectangular ones, some oblong, weird shaped ones. Awesome, you failed. That's okay. So we're gonna crumple it up. Yeah, we're gonna throw this across the room. So I gave you the wrong assignment. We're gonna try this again, but instead, I want you to design a better way for people to enjoy flowers in their home. So same thing, same tools. You got another 30 seconds. Go. So whoever can guess that music, whatever, you get bonus points in the design thinking channel, just for the record. All right, awesome. So we have a couple of designs here that Chris and I came up with earlier. Chris, do you want to chat about your idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one on the left, so if the prompt is about enjoying flowers in the home, the flowers don't necessarily need to be in the home for me to enjoy them in the home. So if we have a house that's full of windows and that house is located in a field of wildflowers, I can enjoy flowers, particularly useful if you have allergies, because you can enjoy the flowers without any of the smells.
Awesome, thank you. And one of the ideas I came up with, so we're all stuck here in home isolation, right? What's one better way to get flowers to you than have it delivered to you by drone? So you can have a weekly flower delivery sent to you every single week. All right, so with what we just did, you just learned one of the most fundamental underpinnings of design and design thinking. So, which is this, for example. So for people and the companies who make coffee, all right, so let's talk about this. They were probably told, I need you to make a coffee machine, right? So you got the carafe there, you got the brewing mechanism, you have the tank for the water, and then you got the clock down there on the bottom, which apparently requires a master's degree to be able to program to actually automatically brew the coffee in the morning, but another story. So this is not an experience. This is, yeah? So one of our, I know my favorite things to look forward to in the morning is smelling that first cup of coffee that you have. And I know some people, when they used to commute to work, right, one of their favorite things in the morning was to go to their local coffee shop, get that cup of coffee. It might be a cold day outside, you're holding it in your hand, it's keeping your hands warm, you're smelling it, the cold breeze. I could go on for days, but this is the experience. This is what I'm talking about when we're talking about feelings and emotions, and that's all a part of experience. And so in order to deliver experiences like this, experiences to your constituents, the world, and your users, they will love. It means putting an end to the way of doing things like design a vase, right? And it's starting to look at everything more from the perspective of design a way for you to enjoy flowers in the home. So this is all about looking through the eyes of a design thinker and making sure you're questioning every assumption. You're asking why incessantly. So why are things the way they are? Why is this working this way? And then you're trying and testing something really quickly without the fear of failure. and you're making sure that your users, and those are the people that you're serving, that you're making your users your North Star. Okay, so what did we just learn? There are 3 things that we just learned in a few minutes that we're gonna teach you to carry through you out this project. So we just learned that when we put people first and focus on human problems rather than technical solutions, design-based, yeah, we get a wider range of ideas and outcomes. That's incredibly important. But we also learned that when we explore options with lots of different people and lots of different backgrounds and lots of different shared experiences, right? So Chris and I, we come from different places. We have different experience. We're gonna get a wider set of outcomes. If we had people in the same room that all did the same thing, came from the same place, probably wouldn't get a wide variety of outcomes. So this is why diversity in teams is super important. And we also learned that making mistakes, hey, it's okay. You crumpled that Post-it up, you threw it across the room, it's fine. And in fact, doing this early and often in a process, it's gonna save you time and money. We also learned that pretty early and admitted, right? You know what? We're solving the wrong problem here. Let's start over. Let's try something else. Let's admit that we just made the mistake and we're going to do something else and do it cheaply. All right, so enterprise design thinking. This is IBM's approach to the practice of design thinking, and it's what keeps our teams aligned here internally. And it also helps us keep focused on our users, and it gives us license to be able to try different things. So let's break enterprise design thinking down. And there are a few big pieces to our approach specifically that help us scale this practice throughout an enterprise that's as large as IBM, which is about 370-ish thousand employees. So it's a lot of people. It's a small country. All right, so the first thing is the principles. So our principles, this is the underpin to everything that we do. We make sure that we're putting users at the center of our work, that we're going through this loop and doing restless reinvention and constantly iterating. And then we're embracing diversity. And then the keys. These are a set of rituals and management practices that help us keep aligned internally. But what I mostly want to talk to you about is this thing that we call the loop. This is a behavioral model to provoke teams and individuals into constant motion. All right, so our methods of production and delivery today, they're not linear, they're continuous. We're continuously delivering. So that means that our methods of problem solving, they need to reflect this. The thing about continuous improvement is that you're never going to be done. There's always going to be a better solution just around the corner. And this loop thing, yeah, this is what keeps us moving forward. And as individuals, as teams, we observe, we reflect, and we make. And as a team, you're going to take many loops around, learning and improving, and as you need, so that when the time comes, you can then commit to the idea that you believe is best. And so every time you commit, you're going to discover new questions and new details that you and your team are going to work out. And you'll learn new things about your team, how you work, and about your users. So observing, reflecting, and making, let's dive into this. What does that mean actually in practice? So speaking about observing first, this is all about immersing yourself in your user's world. So discovering what's out there, uncovering your user's needs, learning their landscape, and testing your ideas. And this can be done many different ways. We can do this through informal interviews or deep dives into contextual inquiry. And this is all about discovering what your user's world, what it's like, not validating the ideas and assumptions that you and your team already have. So moving on to reflecting. Reflecting, this is about coming together as a team, converging on a point of view, and it's going to help you find common ground and build a shared understanding. It's also going to help you get aligned as a team and to be able to put a stake in the ground and to make decisions. And while doing reflection individually, while this is important, it's more important to be able to reflect as a team. And this is fundamental to great collaboration. And then finally, there's making. In the eyes of your user, right, there is no such thing as a perfect product or perfect solution. One of my favorite examples of this, let's talk about Animal Crossing. Yes, I'm going to bring it up. When they had their Easter event, right, they probably thought this was the best thing to ever happen in Animal Crossing universe. Well, what happened? Users, they hated it, right? All these eggs dropping from the sky, not so much. So what did they do? They pushed a patch, right? And made these eggs dropping from the sky happen less often. And then users were kind of quelled a little bit, but that's a whole nother story. But eventually, yes, you have to release something, right? That was the lesson. So making is about getting your hands dirty, communicating concepts, making sure that you're exploring new ideas, and then prototyping the possibilities. And this can be done so many different ways. So you can use sticky notes, you can use what's shown here, a paper prototype. This is something that simulates the experience that you want to deliver, yeah? Or what we're gonna ask you to do, it can be done in code. So you can grab whatever boilerplate, right? Whatever easy React spin-up, whatever app you wanna create, but as long as you're making something, and it can be at whatever fidelity that you need it to be. The only way that you can actually see an outcome is to make it happen. So it's fundamental to moving forward. All right, so that's the idea of the loop. So the loop is an antidote for stagnation, and it keeps teams moving in constant motion. But now I want to say this is not just about doing one or two of these things really well. Your team needs to be good at doing all three. So it's not observing or reflecting or making, it's observing and reflecting and making. So for instance, this is probably how you've seen design thinking happen, right? We're in a very formal workshop setting, you got all these people, you got all these sticky notes and Sharpies flying all over the place. Well, because we're virtual, we're gonna have to modify. But don't worry, we've seen teams and they've proven that you can go through the loop just as effectively and deliver outcomes just as effectively, being virtual as being in person. All right, so we're gonna make do, right? But I'm gonna level with you before you get started. You need to agree to a few baseline truths. So maybe some sort of social contract. Something that we like to say, and Chris and I have said this at least 12 times in the past day, yes, everything is a prototype. So this might not work perfectly, and that's okay. You just need to go with the flow and just do it. So as you're thinking about your challenge for Call for Code 2020, are you just going to design another vase, design another solution, or are you going to change the world, design a better way for people to enjoy flowers? And you know, changing the world, it's going to require us to step back, identify our user, what we can do to make their lives better. So how do we do that? Okay, so I want to dive into a couple of items. Chris mentioned this awesome tool called Mural in the beginning of the presentation. I want to give a quick playback on how we use Mural in this activity. One of my favorite activities to start off a project called Assumptions and Questions. And so just to give you a little bit of context and set this up. So I had the privilege of being able to coach a team, some new enterprise design thinkers here at IBM, through a project where we were partnering with a nonprofit and helping a nonprofit with some of the problems that they were experiencing. So being that everybody was new to each other and to this project, this was a perfect opportunity to level set and kind of see where all of our heads were at. So Mural, awesome. If you haven't seen, the links are pinned in the Slack channel. We'll show you where that is later, but you can access the tool from one of the links that we posted. And so Chris here is going to click through while we talk this through. So one of the first things that you're going to do when you're starting out this activity, you're going to prepare the framework. Very simple. So you've got assumptions on the left-hand side, you got questions on the right-hand side. Very easy. And you can click around, you can create lines in Mural, move them around, you can create titles. If you've ever used any sort of design software, Mural works pretty much exactly like that. All right, so step 2. This is where you and your team are going to get to work. So you're going to ideate silently for 8 minutes, and silently is the key here. We don't want to make it the loudest voice in the room. That's the one that gets heard all the time, right? We want to make sure that all of our team members can get every assumption and every question out of them. So you're going to put one idea per sticky note, and Chris is demonstrating here. So all you do is double click in a Mural board and start typing. You got a post-it going. He's writing an assumption right now. Awesome. So you can either add a post-it by double clicking, or there's menus on the left-hand side where you can drag and drop different colors. And as you see, there's like a little menu that pops up there. You can change the color, the text, etc., etc. Super fun. And then one of my favorite things to do, actually, there's a whole laundry list of icons in here. So if there's one post-it that just really strikes your fancy, and you're like, yes, this is on fire. It's so much on fire. It's going to be big pink fire. Maybe. Yes, there we go. Love it. Thank you, Chris. So that's how you can just really emphasize something. Apparently the assumption is really important. So after you do this for about 8 minutes, and there is actually a timer built into Mural at the very top. So if you're a facilitator, you can get in there, you can set the timer. It's awesome. You want to make sure you're timing your activities so that otherwise these activities can just go on and on and on and on. You don't want that, right? Keeping it time boxed really helps your team concentrate and make sure they're not checking their Slack or their email while they're doing this activity. All right, so the last part of this, after the 8 minutes is up, what we're asking you and your teams to do is to kind of group and label all of your post-its. So you're going to find that one assumption might relate to a question. So cross, pollinate everything. And the purpose of this is to see what themes are starting to come up here. So as you can see, one of our themes here is the website the goal? Maybe not. But you can do this in many ways by grouping, dragging and dropping. Chris is demonstrating how you can add a circle around some post-its, and then you can add a title to them. Boop, there's a title, awesome. And then Chris loves drawing arrows all over these things to see how the groups are related, and seeing those relations might pull out some insights. You can adjust the line size, the line thickness. Yeah, so if you're like me, I love doing this kind of stuff. You can just literally get lost in a Mural all day long. But so that's how you run through an activity. And it's just all about, like we said before, everything's a prototype, getting in there, getting your hands dirty with Mural, trying it out. Everyone's pretty much going to be new to it, so don't worry if you get stuck. We'll have resources to help you out with that later. So assumptions and questions. So in the end, what this helped my team do, it helped us answer what we could. So while the team was writing out their questions, there was a time when we converged and talked about it. There were post-its and questions that we could answer right there and then. There were assumptions that we could validate right there and then. But more importantly, it helped us prioritize questions we still needed to get answers to, and assumptions that we still needed to validate. Because the very next day, what was awesome about this project is we got to go to the nonprofit itself, and they gave a presentation to us, but they gave us plenty of opportunity to ask those questions and to validate those assumptions right there and then in person. So it was just a great way for us as a team to really level set and see where we were.
Thanks, Jessica. I love assumptions and questions. I tell teams that I coach all the time, at the beginning of a project, you should do assumptions and questions. Maybe you're in the middle of the project, you should do assumptions and questions. It's a great way to level set the team and just align on what are the most important things that we need to know so that we can put forth a solution that really makes sense. Just like Jessica shared, like I had the same experience. So when I first landed in Taiwan, working with the Taiwan CDC, we, the IBM team, before we went to meet with the CDC, we sat down and collected our thoughts and prioritized the things we felt like were the most important. While it wasn't about a vase or enjoying flowers, but it was the same concept. We really wanted to make sure that we were solving the right problem and the problem that was going to provide the most value to them as our beneficiaries. So another activity that I really love about framing and answering the right problem with our projects are need statements. And when we write need statements, it's much more akin to it's about discovering, like that prompt, what is a better way to enjoy flowers in the home, as opposed to like, I need another coffee maker, I need another vase. So what is a need statement? It's a statement that frames your user's actual needs, desires, and goals. So let me bring that to life. And the way that I teach teams to do this is with a Mad Lib, meaning that there's some blanks and you fill in those blanks, right? So a user, again, it's all about focusing on the people we are serving with our future solution. They need a way to do something so that, and whatever it is that they're doing, it needs to provide benefit and value to them once they have that in their world. So some things to watch out for when you're writing need statements, like focusing on real user pain points. This is not an opportunity to start to articulate features and functions. It's really about like, what are they trying to accomplish? And then depending on the scope of your project, duration, like how big is your project, like those need statements can be fairly lofty, or they can be very specific. And sometimes you have a big lofty need statement, and then you've got some little baby ones that nest underneath that. So, so let me provide a bad example. So for those that are interested in COVID-19, for your call for code prompt, like an epidemiologist is a pretty likely user, or could be a user. So Liz, our epidemiologist, she needs a way to see a dashboard with all her latest data on it so that she has her data all in one place. So very solution focused. Yes, it's important that an epidemiologist have the data all in one place, but like, what's the real reason that she needs that to be that way? So let's actually move things around a little bit and reframe it. So a better way to say that, Liz, the epidemiologist, needs a better way to manage the incidences of the disease so that she can reduce the spread of the virus, right? So she may do that with having her data all in one place, but we're getting at to the root cause and how we can provide lasting and important value back to Liz. All right, so thinking about that in the context of the Call for Code University Edition, right? So maybe you've decided, hey, I really want to go deep with COVID-19, or maybe I want to focus on climate change. I know with some of the getting started information, like they narrowed that down even beyond that, right? Like, so within COVID-19, you think about crisis communication, remote education. I have a few kids that are in school that have been home, and so that's changed the way our house operates and functions. Community cooperation, like, which actually also could span. So just think about, like, if you pick one of those, and if we think about that, like, that provides the basis for us to start to unpack and create our needs statement. So, so we've decided, like, we're going to focus on COVID-19, right? Like, so thinking about, right? So it's okay to have an objective that, hey, we want to build a dashboard to keep track of all the latest data. Because for any of you that have worked with large data sets, and especially disparate data sets, like, that can be a challenge. So I would not refute that that's not something to be solved. But we've also got some other ones here, right? Like, is it about tracking our campaign effectiveness? Is it about helping people deciding if they should test or not test? Is it about generating automated responses? But like, pick one. So we're going to pick our dashboard. Here's our Mad Lib, right? This person needs a way to, so that, right? And so just like Jessica showed with assumptions and questions, if we think about the person, we're gonna ideate silently on who that person is. Like, think about those different people that we want to track, keep track of that latest data. And for the purpose of this, like, we could do each one of these. We're just going to pick one right now. So we're going to pick our epidemiologist, but we could do the same activity by choosing the public health worker. We could also do the same activity by choosing the clinician. We could actually go test to see like which needs statement resonates the best with each one of those user groups. All right, so now that we've got a person, a who, we're going to try to figure out what they're trying to accomplish, right? Like, so is it about seeing the latest data? Is it about understanding what the data means? Is it about seeing your data? Is it about filtering? Is it about seeing stats in real time? Like, go broad with all the different things that our epidemiologist might need a way to, right? And then thinking about like the so what's the why? Like, it's really not about keeping track of the latest insights. It's really about understanding insights, uncovering insights, knowing what's most important. And when we start to, we can vote on each one of these, and so now we can start to put together a need statement that reframes the problem not as a piece of technology to be delivered, but actually an experience that is meaningful to the people that are on the front lines. So switching gears from epidemiologist, like, so just to bring this to life, we can pick a carpenter. So you could create a need statement that says a carpenter needs a way to use a drill bit so that they can drill a 1/4-inch hole. But if we think about that, like, is that really the problem they're trying to solve, drilling the 1/4-inch hole? Or is it about attaching a drawing? Or if we want to go back to Jessica's first example, when she started off talking about design thinking, right? Who's the person? It's my grandma. She needs a way to put flowers into a vase so that she can enjoy flowers in her home. I think if we start to look at this, it's like, is that really what she needs help with? Like, what's the real underlying need there? So let's move those around a little bit. My grandma needs a way to enjoy flowers in her home that were given to her by grandkids so that she can feel loved and special, right? So if we can understand like what that core need is, it just opens up the aperture for us as we ideate and we explore a lot of different solutions before delivering that final idea, that final solution. All right, so throughout this project, ask yourself that, like, whether you're intentional about design thinking or not, just ask yourself, like, okay, we've got something we're pretty excited about, we think this is pretty cool, but ask yourself, like, have you just come up with a better base, or are you coming up with a better way to enjoy flowers? And then as you start to develop those need statements, like, go test them with your users. There's lots of different ways. You may not be able to go talk to somebody in person, but there's lots of ways that we can engage with people with digital tools that we can test those ideas and those need statements. All right, so Jessica and I have covered, we've covered need statements, we've covered questions and assumptions. Those are just two of many, many design thinking methods and tactics. And starting off with design thinking, if you've never done it before, it can be a little bit daunting. So Jessica is going to share a way, not the only way, but a way to apply design thinking for the call for code.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. What we have created here, we've created a template for you and your team to be able to use as you're navigating your way through talking to your users and just getting rolling and running with the project itself. Okay, so I'm going to have Chris click through and show some of the parts. And like Chris mentioned, this is not the only way. This is just a way that we're recommending that you can go through the loop and collaborate with one another. So there's a whole question on the top around who's who, so learning who your team is. So you can edit the post-its, add in your names, add in your roles, where you're from, and then Chris is gonna add yep. So there's an image search function built into Mural itself, which is awesome. Chris is a dog guy, so of course he's gonna add like a cute fluffy puppy. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And then when you're done with that, you can add a map point to where you are located. So I know that we have a lot of people from different countries that are signed up for this project. So let's all see where you're from. So go ahead and add in your pinpoint. And then we've also collected, along with Mural, so we've put together some resources. If you need some 101 training, there's a lot of pre-recorded webinars. There's also some more advanced material in there about how to run remote facilitation and remote workshops. So lots of resources and free for you to be able to check out. And then us here at IBM, so we have opened up access to our enterprise design thinking platform. So you can go in, create a free IBM account, and then take our courses for free. And we've also got a link here to the design research site, so you can learn about best design research practices. And then there's a few articles that we've written recently, my team, around remote collaboration and making sure that you're putting human needs at the center of everything that you're doing. All right, so we already went through assumptions and questions, but we have it already laid out here for you. So it's got the steps, it's got the framework, already ready to go. And then, Chris, if you scroll to the right-hand side, on every single module, we've pinned the activity from our Enterprise Design Thinking Toolkit. So after you create your free IBM account, you can go see how on our toolkit page, you can get more pro tips about how to run it. There's walkthroughs, there's videos, there's all sorts of awesome things about that activity specifically. So you're like, oh, my team's lost. Click on that, access it, awesome. All right, so after assumptions and questions, it's then time to start drafting out your research plan. So there's many different ways you can do this, but we're recommending, hey, why don't you start with your team on defining kind of what your learning objectives are, what you're trying to find out, and then create a timeline on who you're going to interview, when you're going to do it, how long, etc. Just those details, making sure that you and your team are organized. And then, of course, you want to describe your user and then who you're going to speak to. And then we've got also, again, toolkit items pinned to the right-hand side. Feel free to look into that. So after you've figured out your interview schedule, then it's time to go in and conduct your interview. So one of my favorite pro tips while you're going through and conducting your interviews, make sure that you're going ahead and capturing those highlights and those questions and quotes and insights either during and or right afterwards. That way the information, it's fresh in your head, it's fresh in your brain, right? So that you don't have to go back, listen to your recording, and then pull it out later. Okay, so after you after you do your interviews, then it's time to synthesize all the feedback and the results. So we recommend running through an activity called an empathy map. It's very similar to assumptions and questions. You're going to do, again, silent ideation, come together, converge, group, find different themes. Empathy maps are all about really filling in things that you've heard from your users. So what are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? And then how are they feeling, right? Connecting to those emotions. And again, pinned to the right-hand side. So if you need to watch a video tutorial on how it's done, pro tips, thanks, Chris. Emphasizing that. Feel free to go in there and take a look at that. All right, so after empathy mapping, wait for him to be done drawing on our template. Awesome. All right, so you just synthesized the interview. Then, as Chris talked about earlier, need statements. So this is where you've kind of figured out where the pain points are in your empathy map. Where's your user's pain? Where are they having the most problem? Now it's time to craft those statements. Like, your users now need a better way to do this so that they can blah, blah, blah. So again, activities laid out for you on the left-hand side. And if you need pro tips on how to craft good need statements, right there, pinned to the toolkit. Awesome. After you've done your need statements as a team, then this is where it gets to be really fun. So this is where you and your team are going to start doing ideation. And one of my favorite activities to do this is called Big Ideas Vignettes. And this is where we're going to encourage you and your teams to really think big, really think outside of the box. Make sure that you're not constraining yourself to today's technology, but take a need statement that you and your team that you've reflected on and kind of converged and said, yep, this is the problem that we're going to tackle. come up with some ideas. What are some really big ideas that you can go through to help solve and alleviate your users' pain? Awesome. And so after ideation, time to craft your prototypes. So we recommend diverging, creating individual prototypes and then maybe coming together and then converging and reflecting and making a concept. So again, like we talked about earlier, you can do this in whatever tools you want. Chris and I really love paper and pen. It's quick, it's dirty, it's simple. Craft wireframes, right? It might not make sense to get into code in the very beginning. You want to make sure that you have something laid out that you can put in front of your users first, right? Something quick and dirty that you can just get easy feedback on. And then we have more resources pinned to the right-hand side about wireframing specifically. It's a user experience method, so you can learn about that, how to create and craft good wireframes, and also about paper prototypes. So be sure to check those out. And after you've done your prototyping, yay, it's time to test it. Get it in front of your users and get feedback from them. So cognitive walkthrough, it's one method that we do recommend. So cognitive walkthrough means that you're creating scenarios and tasks for your users to go through while they're using your prototype, seeing if they can accomplish them, where they're starting to break down, how are they feeling while they're going through this and using your prototype. And after you're doing your cognitive walkthrough, scoot to the right, feedback grid. So feedback grid is something that maybe some of y'all have seen used in Agile ceremonies, but this is a great way to capture feedback while from your users some things that they might have said while they're using your prototype. So figuring out what worked well, what needs to change, or there any unanswered questions that came up. And maybe there's new ideas to try. Maybe the user gave you some new ideas to try out. So you can set this up, same thing as you did for empathy map and assumptions and questions, silently ideate for 8 to 8 minutes, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you need, again, more tips about how to run these activities, they're pinned to the toolkit right there. Sweet. So after that, it's all about constant reiteration, right? So rinse and repeat as many times as you and your team need to be able to get to a solution that you're converging on as a team. Yes? And then, awesome. Anything else to add about the template, Chris?
No, great job. And great job, Jessica. Thanks. I think Jessica said this at the beginning, but I think it's important to reiterate, like, we've lined out these things kind of step by step. It feels very process oriented. But that's the great thing about design thinking is like it doesn't have to be prescriptive. Like if you decide you want to skip assumptions and questions and you just want to go interview some people, like you can do that. If you want to actually like make some paper prototypes and some concepts and test those without doing anything else, like you can do that. It's really about reflecting and making and observing, and you can start pretty much wherever you want, like in the loop. But think about that, like how often and how quickly have we gone through the loop today, this week, this month, throughout the project for Call for Code.
One question that did show up on the YouTube chat I want to make sure that we answer right here is if we're suggesting that participants use Mural. And we absolutely are, but again, everything's a prototype. If there is a better way that you find that your team can collaborate better, have at it. We just found that Mural is just a great way to get everybody in your team in one space at one time. And using this template, you can track your progress that you're making throughout the project.
Great, thanks, Jessica. Thanks for staying on top of that. All right, so Jessica just ran through kind of a series of steps. You'll remember early on, there was like go interview some users, and then later on, there was another step around go test your concepts. So having a consistent discussion guide or set of questions is really helpful to normalize the feedback that you're getting. And while those activities are quite different, like they all are rooted in asking questions. So this is an example of a contextual inquiry that I was participating in also, or again in Taiwan. We had a series of questions that we asked, whether it was people that work for the EPA or local health ministry workers. Like we more or less had the same questions, and we actually also had a list of things to look for. And so being able to ask better questions is a skill that, whether you embrace design thinking or not, like, will serve you well. And so we're going to provide a little bit of advice to help ask questions in a more effective manner. So whenever I think about writing, like, all right, what are the questions that we're going to take, whether that be early on, where we're just trying to learn more about someone's job, or it's late on, or we've created a prototype and we want to test it. I really like this quote because it really highlights how we as humans are wired for story. Like, that's what we remember. Like, if we think about our experiences, and especially those ones that last with us, like, there's a story around those. And so whenever we're asking people questions, whether it's testing or whether it's more generative, like, how can we frame questions in such a way that we can start to uncover some of those specific experiences? And so our goals, whenever we're asking these questions, is like, we really want people to open up. Like, if you're interviewing somebody for the first time and you've never met them, like, there's going to be some hesitancy. Like, that's just human nature. And so how do you make that person feel comfortable? How do you make them feel valued? And how do you make them recognize, like, that you're very interested in what they have to share, and you appreciate and really need candor from them? And so all these things will contribute to that. Like, how do we build a relationship in a short amount of time? How do we build the trust? So throughout this section, like, if you only remember these three things, like, you will be in good shape. Although what I found is, like, people, they're pretty good at remembering, like, don't lead the witness, but then they come to me with their questions and say, am I leading the witness? So, and that's okay. Like, this is like any other skill or talent. It comes with practice over time. So a couple of different ways to frame and start to uncover that is, like, so think about, like, am I asking a good workflow question, right? Is this about the process, about how they do their work? So a couple of examples around online shopping, walk me how you make a purchase from here versus, like, how do you make purchases? So the specificity of the first one is what makes that a better question, right? So we're in the context, the person you're talking to has the context, and instead of thinking, like, broadly about every time and everything they bought on the internet, they're thinking about a very specific moment in time. Getting them to think about, like, those past experiences is really important. So I think, like, I love the bad example here, because I think anybody that's ever been on a job interview has probably had that question asked of them, right? Like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Like, what a silly question. And fun fact, like, if I ever interview for your job, I will not ask that question. But if you look at the good example, right? Tell me about a time you approached a challenge at work. So now we're asking the user to think back through all their lived experiences, pick one and pull it out. And then we're getting even more specific about, just don't tell me about the story, like, help me unpack, like, how did you solve it and what led you to success? Another good thing or concept to think about, like, when you're asking questions, is a day in the life. So don't ask somebody, like, what they do for a living. Ask them, like, hey, what's a day in the life look like for you? It's good. You're going to get a much better answer. What do you do for a living? Is going to be a pretty short one answer. Like, if Jessica were to ask me that, I would say, I'm a designer. Versus if she said, oh, like, what's a day in the life look like for you? It's just going to be a lot more rich, and there will be things that I will say that if Jessica was asking me that question, she would say, oh, let's stop and let's talk about that meeting where you're presenting your concepts to all your senior stakeholders. Like, that's just the richness that we get out as a team trying to solve a big problem is much better when we do that. All right, so Jessica earlier today, she talked about our social contract and everything as a prototype. So we're going to do a prototype. So we're obviously broadcasting on a lot of different channels. Hopefully most of you are in the Slack channel, but we're going to hop over to the Slack channel. I'm going to give 3 sets of questions. And so each set has 2 different ways to ask and pose a question. And Jessica's going to post those questions in the Slack. and then you're going to choose A or B. And all of those questions are anonymous, so don't worry about embarrassing yourself, but do lean in and participate. All right, so first set of questions. Option A, how angry do you usually feel when an online transaction fails to go through successfully? Versus option B, recall a time when an online transaction failed to go through successfully. How do you feel and why? All right, so look at those questions. Jessica, I hope, is posted in the Slack channel. Choose A or B. So Jessica, let me know when it starts slowing down a little bit.
Okay. All right, we got about 50-50. Oh, here comes one more. Oh, here they start coming. They're rolling in.
Sometimes it takes a little while to get back into the Slack channel.
All right, we're about 50-50, Chris.
Interesting.
Oh, wait. Oh, I keep saying it. Okay, yep.
Still about 50-50?
Yep, still about 50-50.
All right, so first of all, I will say, like, if we think about those pro tips at the very beginning about not leading the witness, not asking a one-word answer, in that regard, these are both good questions. However, I would say that option B is actually a little bit better for a couple of reasons. First one is it's like recall a time. So we're asking them to go back into their memory and identify like a specific moment or a specific experience. Likewise, we're asking you those couple of follow-up questions that really make it a bit richer, right? How did that make you feel? Why did you feel that way? Like, it really helps provide the context and everything that's going on when they experience that. So both good questions, but B, I would definitely say B's a little bit better. All right, question set number 2. Option A, tell me more about the last time you purchased something online versus option B, what was the last thing you bought online?
All right. Posted.
Posted. All right, everybody. Be brave. Like I said, it's still anonymous. Nobody's going to know which one you chose.
Lean in.
Lean in, that's right. If you recall what I said at the beginning too, like, it's not that these are bad questions, but we're giving you advanced level content here just to set you up for success with the call for code this year. All right, Jessica, what's it looking like?
We're leaning very much towards one of them.
All right.
Okay, we're slowing down, Chris. Yep, it looks like the winner for us over here is A.
A. Excellent job. Everybody that chose A, pat yourself on the back. Like, B is okay, but A is much more rich, right? Like, because we're getting very specific about when was the last, not just what was the last thing you bought, right? If you asked me what was the last thing you bought online, I would say, oh, I bought a spoke wrench. Done, right? But if you say, tell me more about the last time you purchased something online, I would say, I bought a spoke wrench because I was fixing my bike and one of my spokes broke. And when I put the new spoke on, because I had some extra spoke nipples, like, it was all out of true. And with COVID-19, the bike store is closed. Anyway, you get the picture. All right, final set of questions. This is probably the hardest question. So listen and read closely. Option A, tell me what goes on in your head when an online transaction fails to go through successfully. Versus option B, tell me what went on in your head the last time an online transaction failed to go through successfully. So pretty close to the same. So we're now getting into nuance here, but which one do you think is better, recognizing that they are both good?
All right, it's posted. All right, we're about 50-50.
Which is what I would expect, because they're pretty nuanced what the differences are.
Yeah, it looks like we're about 50-50 on this one.
All right.
Almost exactly.
Yep, they're very, very, very close. All right, so I would actually tell you that B is a better question, and the reason that is it's right here, right? And that's actually the difference between the two. The last time, so instead of being broad, like I'm asking you to be very, very specific. So both good questions, but anything you can do to ask them to be more specific and tell a story, that's going to yield more information. That's going to be more helpful for you to really get at the why. Really, what's that underlying need, right? It's not about grandma enjoying flowers in the home. It's about helping her feel loved. And we can translate that as we think about the call for code. All right. So, all right. Great job, everybody. Thanks for leaning in. Thanks for participating. Good job. Hopefully you learned something about asking questions. All right, my kind of bonus pro tip here for asking questions. Don't ever ask this question at the beginning of your interview or the beginning of your test. Ask it at the end, because you will have built a little bit of trust. You will put them in the headspace of your project and what you're trying to accomplish. But ask this, try it, see how it works. If you, meaning the person you're interviewing, could wave a magic wand and change anything, doesn't matter if it's possible or not, what would it be? I love this question. I find that when you tell somebody not to worry about like what's feasible, what's possible, you can break the laws of physics, like, and because they're already in the headspace of the project, like they go to a very interesting place. And so I found some really good ideas and really helped my team do some divergent concept generation based on the feedback we get from this question. All right, so not necessarily surprised, but Jessica and I have some presents for y'all. Woohoo! Woohoo! So the first thing is we talked about here. So we've only covered we've kind of covered 2.5 methods, right? We've talked about assumptions and questions. We've talked about need statements. Asking questions sort of run through the whole thing, so that's where your half comes. But so methods. We've referenced other methods beyond the ones we've explained. We don't have 8 hours to go through all of them, so go to this IBM Design Thinking website and look at the toolkit. So I just happen to have that open. Hopefully it's not. All right, here we are on the toolkit. So you'll notice I'm logged in. It'll give you some if you're not logged in, but if you go set up that free account, like you'll have access to all of them. So one of the things was around interviews. So if I need some very explicit instructions about conducting interviews, like go to this item in the toolkit. It's pretty detailed. I've got the slides here that talk about like when I would do it, why should I do it, as well as the instructions. If you don't want to use the slides, they're here as well. If I don't know why you'd want them, given the fact that everybody's working remote and virtual right now, but you're more than welcome to download the activity. Like you can actually, we'll give you the slides. So a pretty good little thing. As I was looking in the Slack channels, I know a lot of you are interested in AI and machine learning. So we've actually got some design thinking techniques specifically for AI. So definitely check those out. The other thing that could be useful and helpful is, in addition to the toolkit and kind of the step-by-step instructions, we do have some learning tracks and modules here where you can go through each one of these lessons. You'll have a pretty good understanding and awareness of what design thinking is and how to apply it. The great thing, the fun thing about being able to do all these different lessons, when you're finished with that, IBM will give you a certificate or a badge that you can then post on your social media and share with people. So especially for you all in university, like that could actually be something that you put on your resume as you get ready to graduate and start looking for a job. Right, so those are 2 gifts. We already went through the mural. So as a university student and for the duration of the university call for code, like you've got access to mural. As was asked in the chat, like you don't have to use mural, you don't have to use our toolkit, but if you're interested in really understanding like what's the human need, what's the human problem, and how do we solve it. Like design thinking is going to get you there a lot faster. So let's go back to this. So we talked about the toolkit. We talked about interviews. We also talked about the training that's available. All right, so we're tracking pretty good time-wise. So we'd like to take just a minute and see if there's any questions. So you're already in that Slack channel answering like which of the two options is a better question. So any questions for Jessica and I specifically about design thinking or as it relates for design thinking in the Call for Code University Edition?
I haven't seen anything yet, Chris, but I do want to pull up a question that was asked earlier that could really, I think this audience could really benefit from. It was around if you have access to an all-knowing being like a genie to ask questions about COVID-19, what would you ask?
So that's a really wide open question. And so I think about, to me, if that were me, I would want to know like, well, as it relates to COVID-19, who are all the different users or personas that we could be addressing? Like with COVID-19, maybe it's a healthcare worker, like a nurse or a doctor working in the ICU. Maybe it's an epidemiologist or a data scientist working for the Center for Disease Control. Maybe it's our public and elected officials that are trying to make decisions about policy. Maybe it's about like somebody who's actually caught the virus and is going through that. Or maybe my user is a family member or a loved one of somebody that's got the virus. Like, so I would first start with, as it relates to COVID-19, or we could say the same for climate change, like who are sort of the ecosystem and the universe of the different users. And then once I pick one of those, like do assumptions and questions, or like even be more freeform about it. Like, all right, so we're gonna focus on people like nurses and doctors that work in the ICU. And what are all the different questions we could think of? We can then prioritize that and come with a pretty short list and then go find some of those people. Like, well, it's frustrating that we're all shut in right now. Like social media offers us a lot of ways to gain access to those types of people. And whether we're engaging with them directly or just using social media to like look for, like, I promise you, if you go onto Twitter or Facebook, you will find all kinds of stories about nurses and doctors that work in the ICU sharing their experiences dealing with COVID-19. Great question.
Let's see, any other questions come through?
All right, that's okay. No problem. All right, so the last thing I want to share with you all is design thinking mentoring. So you're in the Slack workspace, the Call for Code. We, in addition to Jessica and myself, our good friend who happens to work for Mural, Lindsay Ita, she's also in there. We've invited some of our other design thinking coaches from IBM to be in there. And so if you've got any design thinking questions throughout the duration of the project, like go into the Slack and reach out. Like we'll be monitoring that. We'll respond. If we're not responding quickly enough, you can certainly like direct message us. Likewise, if you would be more comfortable with office hours versus just answering a question in the Slack channel, like we are glad to set up some office hours. In fact, Jessica, maybe in that design thinking channel, actually we can do it once we're off the broadcast, but like we'll post a poll in there, like who would like office hours, yes, no, or I don't care. And if there's a good response for that, we're glad to set that up and have dedicated times when you can come to us throughout the duration of your project and ask your design thinking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks everybody. Thank you first and foremost for participating and being part of the Call for Code University edition. Like here we are, 2020. I don't think anybody could have envisioned the world we live in. There's no way we could predict this, right? Like I know Earth Day is tomorrow.
Today,
like
right now,
like you know it's unfortunate that we can't like show our support for the world, but I think it's very interesting how all the animals have come out because we're not in the world. Like, so some interesting challenges there, and obviously with COVID-19, even in the parts of the globe where they're on the downside of the curve, like when the curve is starting to flatten, like it's even if that curve is flat, there's still much work to be done there. So thank you for participating. We are really bullish on design thinking as a way to help your team ideate and come up with a great solution, and we're here to help. But don't. So let us know how we can help you apply design thinking in the challenge. Thanks, everybody. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. Have a great day, great evening.
Thank you.